reality, and we do, then how in the hell did we manifest a U.S. presidential candidate like Donald Trump? Keep watching to find out. Hey, my happy shiny puppies. This is Melody Fletcher, author of Deliberate Receiving. Finally, the universe makes some freaking sense. Home of all things law of attraction, reality creation, and going down the rabbit hole. Over the last few weeks, a lot of you have been asking me to please explain how in the hell we manifested somebody like Donald Trump into our collective realities. And if please, I couldn't possibly offer a more positive perspective on Trump, as well as the whole U.S. presidential election thingy. Well, my puppies, I'd be happy to. But first, a wee disclaimer. Yep, I'm going to be talking about the election and, by necessity, specific candidates. However, this video isn't meant to be an endorsement of anybody. I'm not trying to tell you who to vote for or what to do. Do what feels right to you. Support who feels right to you. Focus on what feels right to you. Involve yourself as much or as little as you want to in the whole process. I mean, you can even consciously ignore the whole circus. The whole thing that ever matters is what you're doing with your energy and what kind of reality you're aligning yourself with. So, that leads me to my first point. No candidate has the ability to save the world or the United States or a political party. No candidate has the power to create in your reality. On the flip side of that coin, no candidate has the power to screw it all up either. So while you can't brand anyone the savior, you also can't brand anyone, including Trump, what one reader so eloquently called the Antichrist. The world is evolving, and the signs of that are obvious if you're only willing to see them. We can't go back. We cannot go backwards. That's like saying you could suddenly find yourself being a fifth grader again. Sure, you could go back to your fifth grade classroom, but you'd take all your current knowledge and personality with you. You wouldn't be the same person you were back then. Now, as I say this, I can hear so many of you asking, yeah, but Melody, I agree with you that I can't go back and lose all my knowledge. I can't turn into an insane, misogynistic, racist douchebag. But what about all those other people out there? What about all the idiots in the world? You know, the ones that can screw it all up for the rest of us? So to you I say, please rewind the video and listen to the first point again. No one has the power to create in your reality. Not even idiots. So, if this current manifestation isn't happening to show us that the world is going to hell in a handbasket, or a push cart, or a hot air balloon fueled by one of Trump's speeches, then what is it for? Why are we suddenly witnessing thousands of individuals, many of whom are, or at least seem, otherwise quite rational, intelligent, educated, and not totally batshit crazy, who are supporting misogynistic, racist, prejudiced, violence-supporting, violence-inducing, hateful, fearful, powerless views? Where did all this vitriol suddenly come from? Well, it didn't suddenly appear. You see, just because we haven't been witnessing all this hatred, and let's remember that hatred and prejudice always and only ever stem from fear, doesn't mean that no one was feeling it. Living in a politically correct world may have allowed us to pretend that we've all evolved to the lands of fairies and light, but not being allowed to express one's hatred and actually no longer feeling it are two completely different things. In fact, the suppression of this rage, derived from massive and chronic powerlessness, can and does make it worse. Forbidding the expression of prejudice doesn't actually fix it, and thinking it does while ignoring the problem allows it to fester until it's a seething, ugly pressure pit that has no choice but to explode. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we have now. The world's fear and the anger and vitriol that it fuels haven't gone away. They've been there all along. And because the vibration of the world is rising, Those toxic emotions have no choice but to come up to be released. I mean, if you've ever done a detox and experienced the sometimes explosive purging of crap your body no longer needed, and yes, I mean that both figuratively and literally, then you'll be able to see what's happening now for what it is. A purging of toxins, a releasing of the crap that can no longer be supported by the whole. Fear, hatred, and prejudice are coming to the surface where we have no choice but to look at them and deal with them. They can no longer be ignored, no matter how hard we try. Donald Trump is the poster child, the representation of all this toxic waste, and he's a perfect manifestation, as all manifestations are perfect. He started out as an annoyance, and one that we all kind of brushed off as a joke. But then, like a pimple that turns into a boil, he just got bigger and bigger until he made us face the fear of our powerlessness. Out popped the thought, what if he wins? What if all these idiots take over? What if everything just goes tits up? What if we don't get what we want? Well, boys and girls, this is nothing but a macro reflection of a micro fear. The fear of powerlessness. It's the same fear that keeps you up at night, wondering what will happen if you don't get that job, or don't find that man, or that woman, or that animatronic love doll who's the one. If you don't have kids before your biological clock shrivels up and stops ticking, or if you don't win the lottery, God damn it. Trump is challenging all of us to stop focusing on the outcome we don't want and use our considerable power to choose to focus on the outcome we do want, instead of waiting for some outside force like a political candidate to just do it for us. He is, for many of us, an outcome so bad, so painful, so horrific that we're finally willing to do something about it. The Donald is, for a large part of humanity, rock bottom. He's our cattle prod. Now, while Trump and his followers are reflecting our worst fears of powerlessness back to us, so they can be released, the other side of that coin, empowerment, is also showing up in abundance. I'd like to direct your attention to a candidate who, in my opinion, embodies the spirit of empowerment, personal responsibility, and authenticity in a way that I've never seen before. Bernie Sanders. Now, again, this isn't an official endorsement. I'm not telling you who to agree with or what to do. That's up to you. I'm simply giving you my perspective, so maybe hear me out, even if you're not a Bernie fan. What Bernie Sanders has done is to tap into a revolution. He didn't start it, but he's shown a big old spotlight on it and gave it a huge megaphone. This revolution is one of people getting sick and tired of feeling powerless, sick and tired of giving their power away, and finally being willing to stand up and take it back. Now, it's important to note that not all Sanders fans embody this energy, and there are plenty of non-Sanders fans who do. He's just the one who represents this point of view the strongest, and who was inspired to actually give a call to action from a political podium. The call to action that he, as a politician, and in fact, no politician, can make change happen. We, the people, the crowd, the 99%, have to do it. If Bernie embodies the energy of empowerment, then you can see just how much resistance you have to that energy by how you react to it. Now, notice I didn't say that being empowered means that you necessarily agree with everything that Senator Sanders is saying, but, well, you certainly wouldn't want to rip his face off. For example, many people, when faced with the idea of President Bernie, lament that they would love to vote for him, but they just don't believe that he can win. This is the same belief that has you dreaming of a much bigger and more awesome life, but keeps you stuck in a small one because you don't believe that you can succeed. But focusing on and believing in the outcome you don't really want is a choice. And you have the power to choose differently. That is, in fact, your power. It's the power that creates the entire universe. It's why you have free will. You can choose whatever you want. You can even choose that which isn't represented in your physical reality yet. You can choose what feels better to you. And you can choose not to. The choice is yours. But you have to use it. I'd like to point out something else interesting that I've observed about the two sides of this political coin. If one side, the powerlessness, is being represented by Trump and the empowerment side is being represented by Sanders, we can observe how these two energies affect those around them. When Trump entered the running, he began to shape the campaign speeches, the focus, the message of all of his fellow candidates. Suddenly, even those who wanted to stay away from mudslinging found themselves drawn into it. Only the ugliest sound bites got pressed, so everyone started shoveling shit, whether they wanted to or not. Trump's energy, or rather the energy that he represents, perpetuated and brought everyone around him down. You can see the same phenomenon happening in reverse on the Sanders side, though. If you listen to Hillary Clinton's speeches over the course of her campaign, you'll notice that she's sounding more and more like Bernie Sanders. She's adopted many of his talking points and even changed her opinion to match his, sometimes shifting 180 degrees. The energy that Bernie represents has brought everyone around him up. But it's important to note that these two energies aren't practically equal. Theoretically, perhaps yes, but not practically. You see, energy that pulls you down can't do so infinitely. There's a safety mechanism in place called the cattle prod method of growth. That means that as our vibration falls, it creates more and more pain until something happens that's so abhorrent to us, so horrific, so painful that it hits us like a cattle prod. And we have no real choice but to turn around. This doesn't happen when we're pulled up. There's no limit to how empowered we can become. There's no safety mechanism that inhibits awesomeness. So while those who are currently following a candidate who reflects their fear have to eventually turn and run towards the light, no one who is woken up falls back asleep. No one turns from empowerment and says, well, screw this, I want to be powerless again. So as more and more people wake up, the number of awakened humans can only ever grow. It can never decrease. And as that happens, the last tendrils of fear energy will scream and shout and fight for their lives, doing their best to get our attention any way they can, before they finally dissolve into the light. So what can you do to support this process? Well, I'll tell you. All you have to do, all you've ever had to do, is focus on the outcome that feels best to you and choose to believe that it can happen. Work on empowering yourself, on embodying the energy of empowerment in your own life on a micro level, and it will naturally grow to the macro level in your reality. Discover and dissolve your own judgments and prejudices. Let go of your own fears and the hatred and rage they foster. In other words, raise your vibration and trust that everyone else is being guided through this process at their own unique pace, just like you are. All is well, and things are getting better and better and better. And now I want to hear from you. What are you doing to move yourself into the energy of empowerment when it comes to politics? And how are you adding to the energy of what you want? Share your own story in the comments. Even if you're not in the US, every country has their Donald Trump in one form or another. And help empower others who will read your words. And if you'd like to learn more about how to move into this energy of empowerment, then make sure you sign up for my mailing list and join the Happy Shiny Puppy Army. If you're watching this anywhere but on my blog, the link will be below in the description. You'll get access to loads of free resources that will help you understand how you create your reality, what it is that you really want, why you haven't gotten it so far, and how to finally receive the life you've always wanted. So for now, I am Melody Fletcher. Huge hugs to all of you, and I will see you next week. Bye.